All right, first up, Seth Avalos with gardening education.
Thank you. Oh, hello. Man, I love the crowds. It's all right. Okay. So, what if I told you that only 26.6% of all public elementary schools contain school gardens? Luckily, we're one of them. So, right now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, why does it matter? Why do we need a school garden in our school? I will get to it, but first, I want to show you guys a quote that means a lot to me. Young people are increasingly isolated from the land and deprived of the joys and responsibilities it teaches. And it's really, it's not a problem. It's no one to blame. And when people are getting older and our society is growing so much, our technology is getting bigger and greater and better, we can't advance both ways. It's like saying if you're gonna run north, you can't run south at the same time. Okay. So why do we want school gardens? Well, first of all, it's interactive. It takes away from these common worksheets that we do in class, and it's hands-on learning. You're engaged. It promotes nutrition, and gardens have been proven to give you a better mood, so it improves your life overall. Why teachers should use it? Teachers should use it because it's active learning. They're engaged. And it gives kids this connection between history and our community. And here's another quote. Planting a seed today is to believe into it tomorrow. And this is by Audrey Hepburn, who was an actress. And basically, this kind of means doing something right now can greatly affect the future. And I love this quote. This is kind of what I revolved my project around. Now, I understand that some of you may have misinterpreted my senior project, and it's okay. I understand. So many people think that I just did a gardening project, but really, it's to introduce people into the world of gardening. I respect everyone's decisions. You like gardening? Awesome. You don't? I respect you. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to garden, give you that the responsibilities of things you learn from it. And of course, I was blessed. As a child, my dad was an awesome gardener. And of course, not all of us have that. So that's where my senior project comes in. One of my first things that I did was my greenhouse. Now, of course, looking at the big picture is the awesomest thing. But you can't do that. So I kind of split it up into three things. The funding, the setup, and the usage. So my main funding source was Donors Choose. And the way I did it was I had two different Donors Choose. I had one for the building itself and one for the supplies. As you can see, there's a flyer that I used. It's an overall kind of skeleton. I would have a paragraph talking about seniors, a paragraph talking about what I'm doing as a senior project, and then just a couple photos to make it pleasing to the eye. Another big thing I did for my funding was I went to this festival called the Growing Your Own Festival. The Growing Your Own Festival was it happened at Vegas Roots, and when I was there, I got to meet the awesomest people there. They were experienced, a lot more experienced than me. They gave me tips. I told them about my senior project. They fully supported me, and by my calculations, I funded about more than half of my greenhouse from it. And just so you know, I raised over 2.2 grand through my senior project. So the setup. So right now, before I get into anything, I just want to thank Mr. Jesus, Nate Bolton, and Jonathan Vivas. So can we get an applause for them, please? So I'm gonna look straight at you, John. If it wasn't for you guys, that awesome greenhouse that's out there, it would just still be a collection of metal and plastic. Because I'm still new to all these blueprints. So definitely, while they were doing all the hard work, I was just kind of like running with my head chopped off or something. Okay, and then usage. So going back to the quote, I wanted to make this greenhouse not so I could use it right now, but just so the future people could use it as a greenhouse. And it's not only that. I wanted it to represent something that seniors can do so much more than what's been told, that the sky's are the limits, and you don't even have to be a senior to do anything. Everyone right here can do exactly what I did. And it's just hard work and determination. That's all it is. Next, I taught some classes. I taught elementary, I taught some high school, and I taught a little bit of middle school. So first, I was a little bit more structured in elementary. So this is kind of like my skeleton. I had about 4-week process. Well, the first week I would go over soil. The second week I would go over garden critters, so like worms, bees. But we typically focus on worms because they love worms. We also went over plant anatomy, so like plant parts, how they interact. We also went over caring for plants, so like watering, where you should put them, how often you should change the soil. One of the first classes was Miss Winteringer. So this is a photo of us on our final day when they got to go throw and plant. The reason why they're in bags is because obviously pots have drainage, so dirt's gonna go through the hole. I don't want a big mess and I don't want to get yelled at, so I gave them Ziplocs to put in it. All right, so this photo right here. First week, we were doing soil, right? This is just them playing with the desert soil that I collected. And they're just crushing little pieces of grass into it and also putting like coffee grinds into it to make it a little bit more fertile as it sits. Next, this is a photo of our third week, where we kind of went over plant anatomy. Of course, I had to have a couple of worksheets so I don't have to draw everything on the board. We were kind of just going over plant parts, how they interact. And the reason why I like this photo so much is because this is a class that was fully engaged. They were asking me so many questions. Our next is Miss Lent's class. It's a second and third grade class. This class is more into touching stuff and getting dirty. So they're the more of the energetic group, as I like to call them. So this is a photo of them playing with the dirt. What I had them do is I had 2 samples of dirt. I had one from our garden bed and another one from the desert. And we were just comparing the difference, and then in the end, I just let them play with it. And right here, as you can see, they just mix it together. This is their second week, so garden critters. They wanted to go over worms so bad, so this is kind of where one of my first lesson plans involving worms, which is why I was wearing gloves. So this class was like so engaged, so I had to go over parts of the worm, how the worm moves, and how it's good for the garden. This is Miss Anderson's class. And as you can, I absolutely love this photo. I honestly do, because this was our last day together. And I swear, kindergarten just has their own language, because I sit there and I'm talking to them, and I'm like, guys, this is our last class together. And when one of them figured out what I was telling them, he looked at all the other kids, told them, he's like, Mr. Seth, can we hug you? And I was like, yes, but I can't say that because it's not professional. So I look at the teacher and I'm like, And then the teacher's like, so they just all piled me in. And I'm glad that my assistant took this photo because it's a memory. So this one right here, this is our first week. So when we were going over soil, I had them sit down on the ground because I knew if I had them at the table, they would just want to play with the dirt. So yeah, we were just talking, watching a little video. I just love this photo because they all look engaged. They're all raising their hand because I was asking them their question. Okay, worms. So the way I did with worms with them is since I couldn't do some of the classes I could with kindergarten, I did 2 worm weeks. But the difference was I had 2 different species. And so what we ended up doing is we would compare the species, why this one was bigger, why this one was fatter, why are they different colors. All right, and then another class that I did it's called the Jack of All Trades. It was a seminar that I did. I did it twice, but One of them was more just smaller activities, so I only did it for about an hour, while the other one was the whole seminar. So some of the smaller activities that we did were kind of just cup plants, old fashioned. You get a cups and soil plants. You get to take care of it, or even put some in the greenhouse. And this is one of the funner ones. It's a face cup where I just had the kids draw faces, and then we put them on the plant. They'd have their names. I remember one of them was called George. All right. Another one. So this is the awesome one that I thought was the coolest. There's this thing called a sprout house, and what it is it's a house made out of sponges. And if you didn't know, seeds can sprout in sponges. So I figured, since I'm such a over the top kind of person, I'm like, how can I do this? I'm like, you know what? We're gonna make a green KA. So that's what we did. I split them up into groups, and we kind of just did our own projects. So if you would like to take a look at them, again, they're in the greenhouse. So just definitely just walk by, look at some of the stuff that the kids made. One of the last ones I did was biology class. So now we're taking it like really old school. We're talking like October, and these were the first couple of classes. Honestly, they were probably the coolest class I've ever had. So this is a picture of them in the garden bed where they were mixing coffee grinds into the soil. Because if you didn't know, coffee grinds have nitrogen, which is very crucial for plant growth. And here's another photo. So before the greenhouse was even an idea, and the greenhouse wasn't being funded, I had to have a backup plan, definitely just a plan B. So one of my plan B was having just an old-fashioned garden. So what I was having them do is softening the soil. So they're just digging out little trenches. And then my third period, which was my second class, I had them do just little activities when we were inside. We got to make compost, and this one right here. So it's little egg holders. Egg cartons. I don't know. So we just put soil into it, and then we put little sunflower seeds. And I had to select a few of the kids, take them home. All right. So now we're just gonna go into some of the extra things that I did that I thought I should. I thought it was more appropriate. So one of the first things was my participation in the wellness fair. This is a smaller activity, help promote a little bit of gardening, not necessarily outside. It's not old-fashioned gardening. It's just a small little plant inside your kitchen. So what it was is I had fiber pots. If you didn't know, fiber pots, you put them in the ground, they're supposed to dissolve. I had herbs, so like cilantro, oregano, sweet basil. I had a lot of them. And a small little thing that I did, there was a booth right next to me, Christian Sendehas's booth. He was doing pencil holders, but for people that didn't want to use pencil holders, I told them that they could put plants in it, and I would just give them a discount. I wouldn't charge them the full price to help promote recycling. Another thing that I did, so earlier in the year, Mr. Gromlich, for people who remember him, he went down to Target when Target was donating things to people, and they donated to him this thing called the Aero Garden, and it's an indoor hydroponic herb garden. And Mr. Gromlich was nice enough to donate it to me. And at first, it was just sitting there, and I didn't really have a use for it until I was kind of finished with the 4 or 5 classes, and they were like, well, do we get to see any plants? And I was like, I have an idea for you. So I put it in their class. So not only do their class get to see it, but every kid that walks through that door gets to see those little plants growing every single day. And my last thing is my learning experiences. So I believe very much that the trip is much more valuable than the destination, because in the trip you get to learn so much. One of the first things was manners. So you can't just email another person and be like, yo, dude, can I teach your classes, please? You can't, and that's the truth. And it took me a while to kind of get the feel to talk in such a level of professionalism. And of course, at first, I will admit it. I would write an email, I would send it to my advisor, and then she'll critique it, and then send it back to me. I would finish it, finalize it, and then I would get it sent off. And I was probably doing this all year, because I still wasn't getting the hang of it. but eventually I did, and I had the confidence to just throw an email just straight up because I started getting the feel for it. Next, not necessarily just critical thinking, just thinking overall. There is nothing wrong with just sitting there and thinking about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it. I love thinking. And probably you guys have seen me just stare off into space. That's because I think a lot. And one of my stories that thinking really did help me was when I barely contacted the principal, Miss G, down in elementary. I asked her, can I teach some classes? You know, I would like to, whatever you can give me will be awesome. So she's like, yeah, just come over here. Just by yourself, you're fine. Just come in, we'll talk. And I did some thinking, and I'm like, if I just come by myself, then I don't have any backup. I don't have any lesson plans, nothing. So I took a day before I went there just to gather up stuff. So I got some of my lesson plans that I did previously. I printed out a whole calendar just so I remember all the dates. And then I brought, of course, a pen and paper just so I can write things down. And what do you know? When I was there, I was as prepared as can be. Everything that I brought, I used. And without thinking, I would have just been by myself. I'm like, oh yeah, I did this lesson plan. And she's like, but it's not there. So it wouldn't really matter. Another thing is money management. So a lot of my classes were hands-on teaching, touching dirt, doing plans, and that's not free. So again, I just had to think about it. How would I say it? You would have to calculate how much you're gonna spend this week, because I did earn a regular paycheck. But I didn't want to spend my paycheck on school, right? Who wants to spend their money on school, right? Right? Yeah? Okay, I was making sure y'all was still there. I was just making sure. All right, time management. So this is a skill that a lot of seniors require, because without time management, you'll be doing a lot of things last minute, and I feel like if you do things last minute, they're not to your best ability. And especially when you're senior project, everything that you do in your senior project is gonna represent you and you as a person. Next, communication. I always thought that communication is the best thing, especially with your advisor or your overseer, not necessarily your advisor. So definitely, I was blessed enough to have two overseers, my advisor and Miss Smith. And of course, we had some complications. You know, I would tell Miss Smith something, and of course, you know, Miss Kino wouldn't hear it till like the next day. But in the end, my saying is, I'd rather have Miss Kino hear too much than not enough. And one of the last things is learning from your mistakes. If you're gonna poke a bowl and you're gonna get hit, you better not touch the bowl again. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, next, plan B. Oh, it makes me cringe so much. When something happens, I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. And again, just plan B. And it doesn't even have to be plan C, D, E, F, G, A. I can go on and on forever. I know the whole song, guys. And just to wrap it up a little bit, I'm gonna leave you guys off with a little quote. You give a man a seed, no, you give a man a fruit, and he has a nice snack to eat. But you give a man a seed, he now has the power to create life. Thank you.